The first time Natalie Pierce ever put her hand on my chest, she was drunk, furious, and trying very hard not to fall into a ficus. That probably says everything about our relationship. I'm Mason Ellis, 32, senior project manager at a marketing firm in downtown Chicago, which is a fancy way of saying I spend most of my day convincing clients their emergency is not actually a federal disaster. Natalie worked across the aisle from me in brand strategy, and for the past 18 months, she had been the sharpest thorn in my professional side. Sharpest, prettiest, most impossible thorn. She corrected my slides in red ink. I rewrote her campaign timelines in blue. She called my meetings ambitious little hostage situations. I once told her one of her slogans sounded like a candle company having an identity crisis. We were adults, technically, but put us in a conference room together and suddenly every executive leaned back like they'd bought tickets. That Friday night was supposed to be harmless. Our firm had just landed the Bellamy Foods account, and our managing director rented out the back room of a whiskey bar to celebrate. There were speeches, bad sliders, and enough forced laughter to power a small suburb. I was at the end of the bar, nursing one bourbon and trying to leave without looking antisocial, when Natalie slid onto the stool beside me. Not sat, slid. She caught the edge of the bar with one hand and looked at me with narrowed green eyes. "You're still here," she said. "So are you." "I'm celebrating. You look like you're negotiating with gravity." She pointed at me, or near me. "Don't be charming, it's off-brand." I should have walked away. That would have been wise, mature, HR approved. Instead, I smiled. Natalie Pierce in the office was all clean lines and controlled expressions. Navy blazers, low ponytails, black coffee, and arguments so organized they practically came with footnotes. But that night, a few strands of auburn hair had escaped around her face, her lipstick had faded, and there was a softness in her eyes I'd never seen before. It hit me with inconvenient force. She was beautiful when she wasn't trying to win, and maybe even more beautiful when she was. "You need water," I said. "I need everyone to stop congratulating Thomas for my pitch." That sobered me a little. Thomas Beck, our creative director, had given the toast that night. He'd mentioned the team's work, and then somehow spent 5 minutes discussing his own leadership. Natalie had smiled through it with the polished expression of a woman imagining several felonies. "It was your pitch," I said. Her eyes flicked to mine. For 1 second, the noise of the bar dropped away. "You noticed?" "I was in the room." "You were arguing against me." "I was arguing against the rollout schedule. The concept was good." She stared at me like I'd just confessed to stealing office furniture. Then she laughed. Not the clipped little laugh she used in meetings. A real one, loose and startled, and it did something dangerous in my chest. "Careful, Ellis," she said. "Compliments from you feel like traps." "Only the expensive ones." She leaned closer, her shoulder brushing mine. "You know what your problem is?" "Just one?" "You act like you don't care what anyone thinks, but you care about everything. You just hide it under sarcasm and tailored jackets." I looked down at my gray blazer. This was on sale. "Still counts." Her knee bumped mine beneath the bar, and neither of us moved it away right away. That was the moment I should have understood the night had taken a turn. Instead, I ordered her water. 10 minutes later, Natalie stood up to tell our accounting director that his cologne was an assault with cedar undertones, missed the step down from the bar area, and grabbed my tie to keep herself upright. Not my arm, my tie, which brought her face very close to mine. Her breath smelled like mint and whiskey. Her hand flattened against my chest, and her eyes widened, like she had surprised herself more than me. "Your heart is racing," she whispered. "It's trying to escape this conversation." Liar. I could have made a joke. I almost did, but her fingers curled once into my shirt, and there was something unguarded in her face. Something lonely. I had seen Natalie defend budgets like a trial attorney. I had never seen her look like she needed someone to be gentle with her. So I covered her hand with mine and said, "Come on, I'm taking you home." Her expression sharpened on instinct. "I don't need rescuing." "I know you need a ride before you insult a man's cologne into a lawsuit." She tried to glare. It came out almost fond. Fine, she said. But if you murder me, I'm going to be very smug about being right. I'll put that in the police report. Getting her coat was an operation. Getting her into the rideshare was a diplomatic crisis. She insisted she could walk perfectly well, then immediately veered toward a parked delivery bike. I caught her by the elbow and she muttered, "You have annoyingly good reflexes. You have alarmingly bad steering." In the back seat, she leaned against the window at first, arms crossed, determined to remain my enemy even while drunk. Chicago slid by in gold and black outside the glass. The river flashed between buildings. Her reflection hovered over the city lights, softer than the woman I knew at work. Then, halfway to her apartment, her head tipped onto my shoulder. I went completely still. "You smell expensive," she murmured. "It's the sale blazer." "No," she said, eyes closed. "It's you." There are moments a man remembers because they are loud. The promotion call, the argument, the door slam. And then there are moments that barely make a sound but rearrange something. Natalie's cheek rested against my shoulder. Her hand, loose in her lap, brushed mine every time the car turned. I told myself she was drunk. I told myself none of it counted. Then she whispered, "You're nicer when no one's watching." I looked down at her. "So are you." Her mouth curved faintly. By the time we reached her apartment building in Logan Square, she was quiet but awake. I helped her out of the car, one hand at her back, the other holding her purse because apparently rivalry had limits. She gave me the door code after making me swear not to use it for corporate espionage. The lobby smelled like old wood and raincoats. Upstairs, she fumbled with her keys, missed the lock twice, and finally handed them to me with great dignity. "Don't look proud," she said. "I'm being humble internally." "You're never humble, you just lower your voice." I laughed despite myself. And that was when the apartment door opened from the inside. A woman with short black hair, sweatpants, and the suspicious expression of someone interrupted mid-snack looked from me to Natalie, then down at my hand on Natalie's waist. Natalie straightened too fast, swayed, and leaned into me again. The roommate's eyebrows climbed. "Oh," she said slowly. I lifted the keys. "Hi, I'm Mason from work." She had a little too much at the Bellamy celebration, so I brought her home. The roommate blinked once. Then her face changed. Not surprised, amused, wickedly, terribly amused. "So you're the one," she said. Natalie's eyes flew open. "Rena," she warned. I looked between them. "The one what?" Rena leaned against the doorframe like she had been waiting months for this exact opportunity. "The one she pretends to hate." There are sentences that open doors. There are sentences that detonate buildings. Rena's sentence did both. Natalie, who had been half melted against my side 30 seconds earlier, suddenly discovered the spine of a Supreme Court justice. "I do not pretend," she said. Rena smiled. "No, so the weekly Mason report is journalism?" My eyebrows lifted. "The what?" Natalie made a sound like a kettle beginning to boil. "She's joking." "I'm absolutely not," Rena said. "Every Tuesday, sometimes Thursdays if he wears the charcoal shirt." I looked at Natalie. Natalie looked at the ceiling. I should have been decent. I should have helped her inside, said goodnight, and spared her whatever dignity could be salvaged from the wreckage. Instead, because I was apparently a terrible man, I said, "Charcoal suits me." Natalie's head snapped toward me. "Don't encourage her." Rina stepped back, opening the door wider. "Come in, Mason, from work. Since you've already carried her purse, you're basically family." "I did not carry her," Natalie protested. "Your purse," I corrected gently. "That's worse." Their apartment was warm and lived in, full of mismatched bookshelves, hanging plants, and a lemon-yellow couch that looked like it had heard every secret in Chicago. Rena guided us in, still radiating delight. I helped Natalie to the couch. She sat with exaggerated composure, then immediately reached down and tried to remove her ankle boot without unzipping it. "May I?" I asked. Her eyes narrowed. "If you make one Cinderella joke, I'll end you." I was thinking more field medic. That's somehow less romantic. The word landed between us. Romantic. Rena made a strangled noise from the kitchen. Natalie closed her eyes. I'm moving out. I crouched in front of her, careful with her ankle, unzipping the boot and sliding it off. It was such a small thing, but her foot relaxed in my hand, and for once she didn't pull away or weaponize a joke fast enough to hide. Her voice dropped. Thank you. I looked up. Without heels, without her blazer armor, with her hair coming loose and her cheeks flushed, she didn't look like my rival. She looked tired, brilliant, human. Someone I wanted to know when nobody else was grading the performance. You're welcome, I said. She held my gaze a beat too long. Then Rena appeared with a glass of water and two tablets. Hydrate, traitor. Natalie accepted them. You're enjoying this too much. I've watched you complain about this man's emails for a year while saving them in a folder called Mason being infuriating. I slowly turned to Natalie. Her face went crimson. It's for documentation, she said. Of course. Professional documentation. Charcoal shirt-related documentation? She pointed at the door. You can leave now. But she was smiling. Not much. Just a reluctant curve she tried to bite back. I'd seen Natalie win over a boardroom with statistics and nerve. This little smile felt more private than any victory. Rena leaned close to me and stage whispered, She also said your voice gets lower when you're about to win an argument. Natalie gasped. Rena. She said it was annoying. It is annoying. Rena nodded sagely. And hot. Natalie grabbed a pillow and threw it. Rena dodged with the ease of practice. I should go, I said, mostly because staying felt dangerous in ways I wanted too much. Natalie's smile slipped. You don't have to run. The room quieted. Even Rena went still, then suddenly became fascinated by the sink. I'm going to rinse something loudly. She vanished into the kitchen. Natalie looked down at her water glass. I'm sorry. For tonight? For being messy. You're allowed to be messy. Not really. Her laugh was small, without humor. At work, if I'm messy, I'm difficult. If Thomas takes credit, he's strategic. If I push back, I'm emotional. So I learned to be sharper than everyone else in the room. I know. Her eyes lifted. Do you? I know I've made it harder sometimes. That surprised her more than any compliment had. I sat on the edge of the coffee table, close enough that our knees almost touched. I thought if I challenged you, people would take the work seriously. I didn't think about how often you were already fighting to be heard. Natalie swallowed. For once, she had no comeback ready. I don't hate you, I said. Her fingers tightened around the glass. I mean, you once described my 5-year growth model as a haunted spreadsheet, and I did consider revenge. It was haunted. It had one formatting issue. It had vibes. I laughed, and she did too, softer this time. Then she said, I don't hate you either. The words were quiet, almost reluctant, but they hit harder than Rena's doorway bomb. No, I asked. Natalie studied me through lowered lashes. You irritate me. Obviously. You challenge me. Likewise. You notice things, she said, even when I wish you wouldn't. My heartbeat picked up. Outside, a car hissed through wet pavement. In the kitchen, Rena had apparently decided to rinse one spoon for several minutes. Natalie's knee brushed mine. This time, there was no moving car to blame. I noticed tonight, I said, when Thomas took your credit. Her expression flickered. And I noticed you pretending it didn't hurt. That's inconvenient. I'm an inconvenient man. Yes, she said, but there was warmth in it now. I wanted to touch her face. I wanted it with such sudden clarity that I had to curl my hand against my thigh. She was drunk. Not falling down gone, not unaware, but softened by whiskey and anger and exhaustion. I knew better than to blur a line she might regret. So I stood. I'm going to leave my number with Rena. Text me tomorrow so I know you survived the Cedar assault. Natalie frowned. I have your number. For work. That's still a number. Then text me for not work. Her lips parted. It felt like the first honest move either of us had made. A social text? She asked. If you're brave enough? She leaned back against the couch, eyes bright despite the tiredness. Careful, Ellis, I'm very brave. I know. That one came out too sincere. Her face softened, and for a moment, all the banter fell away. She reached for my hand, just caught my fingers lightly before I could step back. Thank you for bringing me home, she said. Her thumb brushed over my knuckle. It was nothing. It was absolutely not nothing. I squeezed once, then let go before I forgot every good reason not to stay. Rena reappeared exactly on cue, drying her hands on a towel and looking between us like she'd just watched the final scene of a period drama. I'll walk you out, she said. At the door, while Natalie pretended not to watch us from the couch, Rena lowered her voice. She doesn't let people see her tired, she said. I figured. She let you. I looked back. Natalie was staring into her glass, hair falling across one cheek, one bare foot tucked under her. My chest did that inconvenient rearranging thing again. Rena followed my gaze and smiled, gentler now. Don't make her regret it. I won't. When I stepped into the hall, Natalie called after me. Mason? I turned. She lifted my tie from where it hung slightly crooked, evidence of her earlier attempt to strangle gravity with it. Charcoal is better, she said. Then she closed the door. I stood there in the hallway like an idiot, smiling at a piece of wood. The next morning at 9:17, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I survived. Unfortunately, so did your ego. A second message followed. This is Natalie, for not work. I typed back too fast. Glad to hear it. My ego was worried about you. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, coffee, tomorrow, neutral territory, no spreadsheets. I stared at the screen, grinning like the city had turned gold. It sounded like a challenge. It sounded like a date. Neutral territory turned out to be a tiny coffee shop in Wicker Park with fogged windows, mismatched chairs, and a barista who looked personally offended by the concept of decaf. Natalie was already there when I arrived. Of course she was. She sat at a corner table in a cream sweater instead of a blazer, her hair down around her shoulders, one hand wrapped around a mug. Without the office lighting and the battle posture, she looked almost unbearably approachable. Then she saw me and arched one eyebrow. Almost. You're late, she said. I checked my watch. I'm 3 minutes early. I arrived 12 minutes ago. That makes you late in spirit. I took off my coat. Good morning to you too. It is now, she said, then seemed startled by her own words and looked into her coffee like it had betrayed her. I sat across from her, smiling despite myself. Careful, Pierce, that almost sounded friendly. Don't get attached. Too late. I've already named our first peace treaty. She fought a smile. This isn't a peace treaty. No? It's a strategic ceasefire with caffeine. The barista called my name, and when I came back with my coffee, Natalie had moved her chair. Not much. Just enough that we were no longer directly across from each other like negotiators. Now we sat at the corner of the table, knees angled close, both of us facing the rain-streaked window. It felt less like a meeting, more like something neither of us wanted to name too quickly. No spreadsheets, she reminded me. No work talk, I said. I didn't agree to that. You said no spreadsheets. I'm expanding the treaty. She sipped her coffee. Fine. No work for 10 minutes. Generous. I'm known for my softness. Yes, like a cactus in heels. She laughed, and I swear the whole shop improved. For the first few minutes, we were careful. Favorite neighborhoods. Worst? Client dinner, whether deep dish was pizza or structural engineering. But the edges wore down. Her sarcasm softened into humor. My teasing stopped feeling like armor. Then she told me she painted. That caught me off guard. You paint? Don't sound so shocked. I'm not. I just pictured you relaxing by correcting restaurant menus. That's Tuesdays. She traced the rim of her mug. Painting is different. Nobody gets to approve it. Nobody asks for 3 alternate versions by noon. What do you paint? City things mostly. Fire escapes, windows, people waiting at crosswalks. Ordinary stuff. Doesn't sound ordinary when you say it. Her eyes flicked to mine. There it was again, that pause where the air between us warmed. "What about you?" she asked. "What do you do when you're not terrorizing timelines?" "I cook." "You cook?" "Don't sound so shocked." "I pictured you eating protein bars over a sink while answering emails." "That was one difficult quarter." She grinned. "What do you cook?" "Risotto when I'm trying to impress someone." "And when you're not?" "Tacos, pancakes, very elaborate grilled cheese." Her gaze dropped briefly to my mouth, then returned to her mug. I noticed. She noticed me noticing. The silence that followed was not awkward. It was worse. It was charged. Natalie cleared her throat. "So, if this were a date," my pulse kicked. "If," I said, "if this were a date, I'd accuse you of trying to make yourself sound domestic." "And would it work?" "Unfortunately." I leaned back, unable to stop smiling. "Then, if this were a date, I'd tell you I'm enjoying it." Her expression went still. Outside, rain tapped softly against the glass. "And if this were a date," she said, voice quieter, "I'd tell you I almost canceled because I didn't know who we'd be without the fighting." "Who are we?" "I don't know yet." Her honesty slipped under my ribs. I reached across the small table, palm up, not grabbing, not assuming, just offering. Natalie looked at my hand for a long second. Then she set hers in it. Her fingers were cool from the mug. Mine closed around them, and the simple contact felt more intimate than it should have in a crowded coffee shop. "I like finding out," I said. Her thumb moved over mine once, tentative and deliberate. "Me too," she whispered. The 10-minute no-work treaty lasted 37 minutes. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and the light in her face dimmed. I didn't need to ask. I recognized the expression. "Office storm incoming?" "Thomas?" I guessed. She turned the phone toward me. "Need revised deck by tonight. Bellamy wants my original positioning sharpened. Send files." My jaw tightened. "My original positioning," I repeated. Natalie pulled her hand from mine, not abruptly, but like the world had reminded her she couldn't sit there being soft forever. "I'll handle it." "You shouldn't have to." "No, but I do." She locked her phone. "And before you go full noble warrior, I don't need you charging into Slack with a sword." "I don't own a sword." "You have sword energy in emails." Despite everything, I laughed. She smiled faintly, then looked away. "This is why I didn't want to mix things." "Coffee and credit theft?" "Work and—" She gestured between us, helpless for once. "Whatever this is." I wanted to say date. I wanted to say beginning. I wanted to say the thing that had been building since she grabbed my tie and accused my heart of racing. Instead, I said, "Then let's not let work decide what this is." Her eyes came back to mine. "You make that sound easy." "It's not." I leaned closer. "But I'm here because I wanted to see you. Not because of Bellamy, not because of Thomas. You." The vulnerability in her face nearly undid me. "Mason," she said softly. I stood before I could overthink it. "Come on." "Where?" "We still have 12 minutes before either of us has to pretend to be responsible. Walk with me." "It's raining." "It's misting." "It is aggressively misting." But she put on her coat. We walked beneath one umbrella because mine was bigger and because neither of us suggested using two. The sidewalk shone silver. Her shoulder brushed my arm, then, after half a block, she slipped her hand through the crook of my elbow as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I looked down. She looked ahead. "For stability." "Of course." "Wet pavement is dangerous." "Extremely." "And you have annoyingly good reflexes." "So I've heard." At the corner, the light turned red and we stopped under the umbrella, close enough that I could see raindrops caught in her lashes. "You really noticed?" she asked. "Thomas?" She nodded. "I noticed before Friday," I said. "I noticed you were the one staying late, the one fixing strategy holes, the one making everyone else look smarter." Her mouth trembled, just barely. "That's a dangerous thing to say to a woman on 3 hours of sleep." "Good thing you had coffee." She laughed, but her eyes shone. Then she rose onto her toes and kissed my cheek. It was quick, warm, almost shy. It ruined me completely. When she lowered herself, she stayed close. For the record, this was a date. My hand tightened on the umbrella handle. Was? Her smile returned, small and devastating. Is, if you don't ruin it. I'm motivated. The light changed. Neither of us moved. I turned my head slightly, giving her every chance to step back. She didn't. Her gaze dropped to my mouth again, then lifted. Mason? Yeah? If you're going to be noble about me being tired or stressed, or technically your rival, do it quickly. I smiled. I was trying to be respectful. I know. Her fingers curled into my sleeve. It's very irritating. So I kissed her. Not hard, not rushed. Just a soft, careful press of my mouth to hers under a black umbrella on a rainy Chicago sidewalk. She inhaled like she'd been waiting longer than she wanted to admit. Then she kissed me back. Her hand slid from my sleeve to my chest, right over the place she'd accused my heart of betraying me. This time, I didn't bother pretending it wasn't racing. When we parted, her cheeks were flushed and her smile had lost all its defenses. Still enemies? I asked. She pretended to think about it. Professionally, she said, I reserve the right to destroy you in meetings. And personally? Her fingers remained on my chest. Personally, she said, I'd like dinner. My phone buzzed before I could answer. Then hers did too. Work, of course. But Natalie didn't look at hers, neither did I. Not yet. I bent and kissed her once more, lighter this time, because I could. Dinner, I said. Risotto level. She smiled against the rain. Then I might be impressed. By Monday morning, I had kissed Natalie Pierce twice and learned two important things. One, she tasted like coffee and rain. Two, she was even more dangerous when she smiled at me across a conference table like nothing had happened. The Bellamy follow-up meeting started at 9. Natalie sat 3 chairs down in a black dress and camel coat, composed enough to make every memory of her under my umbrella feel like something I'd invented. Then her eyes met mine over the rim of her coffee. One eyebrow lifted. My pulse forgot we were at work. Thomas stood at the front, clicking through the revised deck. I tightened the positioning over the weekend, he said, as if he hadn't texted Natalie at breakfast demanding she do exactly that. Natalie's face didn't change. Mine must have because she nudged my shoe under the table. A warning or a reminder, don't charge in with a sword. So I didn't. I waited until Thomas reached the slide with the campaign architecture. Then I leaned forward. This is strong, I said. Natalie, can you walk us through how you developed the consumer shift framework? It was the backbone of the original pitch. The room turned toward her. Thomas's smile twitched. Natalie looked at me for one fraction of a second. Surprise? Gratitude? Something warmer? Then she sat straighter and took the room like it had always belonged to her. Of course, she said. For 10 minutes, she was magnificent, clear, sharp, unshakable. She explained the research, the emotional hook, the rollout logic. By the end, even our managing director was nodding like he'd discovered gravity. Thomas tried once to interrupt. Natalie paused, smiled politely, and said, I'll get to that in the next slide. I nearly fell in love with her right there. Afterward, while everyone filed out, she lingered by the window pretending to check her notes. I pretended to gather my laptop slowly enough to be embarrassing. When the room emptied, she said without looking up, That was very subtle. I thought so. You handed me the microphone with a spotlight and a marching band. Budget cuts, no marching band. She turned then, and the professional mask softened. Thank you. I didn't rescue you. I know. Her voice was quiet. You made space. There's a difference. That mattered to her. I could see it. It mattered to me that she knew. I stepped closer, stopping at a respectable office distance that suddenly felt ridiculous considering I'd had her fingers in my hair under an umbrella. Natalie, I said, about dinner. The door opened. We sprang apart like guilty teenagers. It was Rena. Not in person, obviously. Natalie's phone lit up on the table with a video call, Rena flashing across the screen. Natalie stared at it in horror. Don't answer, I said. I have to. If I don't, she'll assume I'm dead or emotionally compromised. Aren't you? She pointed at me, then answered, I'm at work. Rena's face filled the screen. And yet you're blushing. I'm hanging up. Hi, Mason, Rena sang. I leaned into frame. Good morning. Oh, it is now? She squinted. Are you two alone in a conference room? No, Natalie said. Yes, I said. Natalie closed her eyes. Rena grinned. Excellent. Remember, workplace romance is best handled with honesty, boundaries, and excellent gossip control. Also, if he cooks risotto, send proof. Natalie ended the call. For a second, silence. Then I laughed. Natalie tried not to. Failed. Covered her face with one hand, shoulders shaking. It was the first time I'd seen her laugh at work without checking who was watching. I wanted more of that. Greedily. Dinner, I said again. Tonight. My place. I cook, you judge. Her hand lowered. That sounds intimate. It is. The honesty made her breath catch. I didn't soften it with a joke. I want it to be. Her gaze held mine, steady and vulnerable at once. Then yes. That evening, I cleaned my apartment like the health department was coming. I bought wine I couldn't pronounce and enough arborio rice to feed a small, emotionally complex village. Natalie arrived at 7 wearing jeans, boots, and a green sweater that made her eyes unfair. She held up a bag. Dessert. What kind? Backup dessert, in case the risotto is tragic. Cruel. Prepared. She stepped inside and the room changed. I'd lived in that apartment for 4 years, but with Natalie there, touching the spine of a cookbook, examining the herbs on my counter, smiling at the pan like she didn't quite trust it, it felt newly mine. Or maybe newly ours, which was insane for a second date. She perched on a stool while I cooked. For once, we didn't compete. She grated parmesan. I stirred. She stole a mushroom from the cutting board and accused me of under-seasoning with absolutely no evidence. You haven't tasted it, I said. I sensed it. You sense sodium? I contain multitudes. At some point, she came around the counter to reach for the pepper. The kitchen was not small, but she moved close anyway. Her hip brushed mine. Her hair skimmed my jaw. I stopped stirring. She noticed. Of course she did. Problem? She asked. You're in my workspace. Your workspace lacks resilience. I turned slightly. We were inches apart, the risotto bubbling behind me, her hand still on the pepper grinder. You know, I said, I used to think you argued with me because you couldn't stand me. I did. Past tense? Her eyes dropped to my mouth. Mostly. I kissed her then, because risotto was important, but not that important. She smiled against me before kissing me back, both hands coming to my shirt. No whiskey this time. No rain, no excuse, no rivalry to hide behind. Just Natalie in my kitchen, choosing to be there. When the pan hissed, she pulled back laughing. Your risotto is going to burn. Worth it. Spoken like a man who has never eaten scorched rice. We saved dinner. Barely. Afterward, we sat on the floor by the coffee table because she claimed my couch was too formal for honest food. The risotto was good enough that she went quiet for 3 bites, which I took as a standing ovation. This is annoying, she said finally. My cooking? That you're competent in non-work environments. I apologize for my range. She looked at me over her wine glass, softer now. You're different here. So are you. Less terrifying. Not less. I smiled. Just more. Her expression shifted. I set my glass down. That came out vague. No. She tucked one leg beneath her. I think I know what you meant. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, the air settled into something gentle. Natalie traced the edge of the coffee table. I'm scared of liking you. My chest tightened. Because of work? Because I know how to fight you. Her laugh was faint. I know how to be impressive, difficult, useful. I don't always know how to be wanted without performing for it. That truth deserved care. I moved closer, slow enough for her to stop me. She didn't. When I reached for her hand, she gave it to me. You don't have to impress me tonight, I said. I brought backup dessert. That impressed me. She laughed, but her eyes were bright. I lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. I want you when you're sharp. I want you when you're tired. I want you when you're making fun of my seasoning. There isn't a version of you I'm asking to trade in. For once, Natalie had no clever answer. She leaned forward and kissed me, slow and deep, her palm warm against my cheek. It wasn't a question this time. It was an answer. When she rested her forehead against mine, she whispered, "That was a very good line." I meant it. I know. Her thumb brushed my jaw. That's why it worked. Later, after the backup dessert proved unnecessary but excellent, her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced down. Her smile faded. "What is it?" I asked. She turned the screen toward me. A message from Thomas. "Need you in early. We should discuss how you positioned yourself in today's meeting. Optics matter." Anger sparked hot and immediate. Natalie took the phone back before I could speak. "No swords," she said. I exhaled. "I know." She studied me, then reached for my hand again. "But maybe tomorrow, you stand with me?" Not in front of her, not instead of her, with her. I squeezed her fingers. "Always." Her smile returned, small but real. Then she leaned into my side, and before either of us answered Thomas, we sat there together in the quiet, choosing each other first. The next morning, Natalie wore red lipstick like armor. I wore the charcoal shirt. She noticed the second I stepped off the elevator, her mouth twitched. "That's manipulative." "It's morale support. It's fabric. Powerful fabric." She rolled her eyes, but when we walked toward the small glass meeting room Thomas had claimed, her fingers brushed mine once. Not for balance, not by accident, for courage. Thomas was already inside with his laptop open and his expression arranged into professional disappointment. "Natalie," he said, "Mason? Didn't realize this required an audience." "It doesn't," Natalie replied, taking the chair across from him. "It requires clarity." I sat beside her, not close enough to speak for her, close enough that she knew I wasn't going anywhere. Thomas leaned back. Yesterday's meeting created an impression that ownership of the Bellamy strategy was individual. "It was," Natalie said calmly. "The positioning framework was mine." His smile tightened. "That's not really how leadership sees collaborative work." I felt the old instinct rise. The urge to cut in, dismantle him, turn the room into a battlefield. Then Natalie's knee touched mine under the table. I looked at her. She didn't need rescuing. She wanted me there. That was different. So I waited. Natalie opened a folder and slid printed pages across the table, email timestamps, draft history, notes from client calls, every version of the strategy clean and undeniable. "I'm not asking for special treatment," she said. "I'm asking that my work be credited accurately in front of the team and the client." Thomas glanced at the pages, then at me, like I might help him laugh it off. I didn't. "She's right," I said. "And if leadership needs confirmation, I'll provide it." Thomas's jaw flexed. The meeting lasted 12 minutes. By 10, our managing director had been brought in. By noon, a company-wide recap went out naming Natalie as the strategy lead on Bellamy Foods. By 2, Thomas was suddenly transitioning to a broader oversight role, which sounded a lot like being moved away from anything he could steal with both hands. At 3:15, Natalie appeared beside my desk. "Stairwell," she said. I followed her like a man with no survival instincts. The second the door shut behind us, she turned, grabbed the front of my charcoal shirt, and kissed me. Not polite, not careful. A kiss with relief in it. Triumph, gratitude, want. I backed her gently against the cool wall, one hand at her waist, the other braced beside her head. When she pulled away, her lipstick was no longer just armor. Some of it was on me. She stared at my mouth and smiled. "That's going to be hard to explain." "I was attacked by morale support." She laughed, then pressed her forehead to my chest. For a moment, we just breathed. "I was scared," she admitted. I know. Not of Thomas, not really. Her fingers curled in my shirt. I was scared that if things got complicated, you'd decide I was too much work. I cupped her face and made her look at me. Natalie, you are a lot of work. Her eyes narrowed. I smiled. So am I. That's why this is going to be interesting. She tried to stay stern and failed. I'm serious, I said. I'm not here because you're easy. I'm here because I choose you in meetings, in kitchens, in stairwells where we are definitely violating several policies. Her smile softened into something that made the whole day go quiet. I choose you too, she said. That was the first time either of us said it that plainly. No sarcasm, no rivalry, no exit strategy. Just us, standing in a stairwell that smelled faintly of paint and old coffee, with her hands on my shirt and my heart right where she could feel it. Your heart is racing again, she whispered. It has a type. This time when she kissed me, she was smiling. We did the responsible thing after that. Mostly. We told HR before Rena could make a PowerPoint about us. We kept separate reporting lines. We stopped arguing in meetings for sport. Fine. We reduced arguing in meetings for sport. Natalie still destroyed my timelines when they deserved it. I still challenged her rollout plans when they got too ambitious. But something changed after that week. The room no longer watched us like a prize fight. They watched us like a partnership. And outside the office, we learned the softer things. She painted at my kitchen table on Sundays, sleeves pushed up, sunlight in her hair, while I ruined perfectly good songs by humming off key. I learned she hated cilantro, loved old brick buildings, and cried exactly once during a documentary about octopuses, then threatened me with exile if I told anyone. She learned I burned pancakes when distracted, kept birthday cards in a drawer, and had been pretending not to be nervous around her since the day she called my client deck visually aggressive. Rena became unbearable. So, she said one night, watching Natalie steal fries from my plate at a bar, still pretending to hate him? Natalie didn't even look embarrassed anymore. She dipped a fry in my ketchup and said, "No, now I openly tolerate him." I put my arm along the back of her chair. Romance is alive. Natalie leaned into me anyway. 6 months later, Bellamy invited our team to the campaign launch. Natalie stood on a rooftop overlooking the city, wearing a silver dress and the expression of a woman who had finally stopped asking permission to take up space. The campaign was hers. Everyone knew it. When the first billboard lit up across the street, huge and bright against the Chicago night, she went still beside me. I looked at the billboard, then at her. She was glowing. Not because of the lights, because she had earned this, and she knew it, and she didn't have to stand there alone. I took her hand. She squeezed back without looking away. "Remember the whiskey bar?" I asked. Her lips curved. "Unfortunately. You grabbed my tie and called me a liar. You were one." "About what?" She finally turned to me, eyes warm, city shining behind her. "Your heart." I laughed softly and pulled her closer. Below us, traffic moved like ribbons of gold. Above us, the night was clear. And in front of a billboard with her work lighting up half the block, Natalie kissed me, like she wasn't hiding from anything anymore. A year after that drunk Friday night, the lemon-yellow couch moved into my apartment. So did Natalie. The first morning after, I found her barefoot in my kitchen wearing my charcoal shirt, painting a tiny canvas propped beside the coffee maker. It was a picture of a black umbrella, two figures beneath it, standing close in the rain. On the bottom, in small, neat letters, she'd painted, "Neutral territory." I wrapped my arms around her from behind and kissed her shoulder. "Still think charcoal suits me?" I asked. She leaned back into me, warm and sleepy and mine by choice. "It suits me better," she said. And because some rivalries deserve a beautiful ending, I let her win. What would you have done if you took your drunk office rival home and her roommate said you were the one she pretended to hate? Have you ever experienced something similar? Tell me your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.